If you've been following this channel, you know how to read a histogram to protect your highlights and balance your exposure. But today, we are taking off the training wheels. We are going to look under the hood at the actual math of your camera sensor. A quick warning, this is an advanced topic. If you aren't completely comfortable reading a standard histogram yet, pause this video and go watch my 3-part beginner series, link below. If you're still here, get ready, because I'm about to show you why the histogram on the back of your camera is lying to you, and how understanding a ghost from the 1950s is the secret to getting the cleanest, most noise-free files possible. Let's start with a set of training wheels you might be familiar with, the exposure zones. We've used the bucket analogy on this channel before. Think of your camera sensor as millions of tiny buckets catching raindrops of light. Because each exposure stop represents a doubling of light, the math grows exponentially. Down in zone 5, your buckets have collected a modest 64 units of light. But up in zone 10, the brightest highlights, they have collected 2,048 units. Looking at this, you might ask a very logical question. If my subject is a mid-gray rock that belongs in zone 5, why do I care about zone 10? The answer is signal to noise. If you expose that rock to land in zone 5, you only collect 64 units of light. Your bucket is nearly empty. When you edit that photo in Lightroom, there isn't enough data to work with, which results in ugly, grainy noise. But if you intentionally overexpose that rock so it lands in zone 9, catching 1,024 units of light, your bucket is packed with rich, clean data. You simply darken it back to zone 5 in post-production. This is why the technique called exposing to the right, or ETTR, is so powerful. Because of this doubling math, your sensor acts like a rigid robot accountant. The absolute brightest stop of light contains exactly 50% of all the digital data your camera captures. If you looked at a true, linear raw histogram, it would be entirely crushed to the right side, with the shadows registering as barely a blip on the graph. But when you look at your camera screen, the histogram is spread out nicely into a balanced bell curve. Why? Because the camera's processor steps in and applies a mathematical power law called the gamma 2.2 curve. And the reason it uses that specific number, 2.2, has nothing to do with modern digital sensors. It goes all the way back to the old cathode-ray-tube televisions. Physicists found that the electron guns inside those old glass tubes didn't output light linearly. If you doubled the voltage, the light output actually quadrupled. They measured this natural curve of the cathode ray tubes and found it followed an exponential power law of 2.2. To make images look normal on those TVs, engineers had to apply the exact inverse math. When modern screens replaced tube TVs, the industry kept the gamma 2.2 standard. When your camera applies the gamma 2.2 stretch to your JPEG preview, it takes that dense pile of highlight data and stretches it out like a rubber band. By a pure mathematical coincidence, the dead center of a gamma 2.2 histogram represents exactly minus 2.2 stops of light, or 21.8% brightness. This sits right next to traditional 18% middle gray, pulling the shadows up so the image looks natural to human eyes. Your camera's histogram is showing you a stretched, gamma-corrected illusion, but the real linear raw data is hiding on the right edge. Master that right edge, fill those buckets, understand the math behind the curtain, and you will master your raw exposures. If you want to master the rest of your manual settings without getting bogged down in the fluff, click the link in the description to download a free chapter of my new updated 2026 edition of Mastering Aperture, Shutter Speed, ISO, and Exposure. Keep shooting, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's keep it simple.